High fly ball into right field. She is gone. In a year that has been so improbable, the impossible has happened. This one by Mattingly. Oh, hang on to the roof. Goodbye, home run. Don Mattingly. Top lights one. Deep left field. Down the line. That ball is out of here. Out of here.
What's up, everybody? Welcome back to another episode of Table Setters covering all things Major League Baseball. As always, I'm Steve. Join my tag partner, Devin. What's going on, man?
What's up? What's up? Welcome back to Table Setters, everybody. Thank you for tuning in. Yes, we're coming at you on a different day than usual, one day delayed. As we told you guys last week, if you listened, Steve and I, both big Knicks fans, we said we were going to take our usual recording day to watch Game 1. And that's what we did. So we apologize for being a little late this week. But as always, we are here with a weekly episode ready to cover all the baseball that we're seeing on our televisions.
So all the eyes of New York, of course, on the New York Knicks and them taking a 1-0 lead in San Antonio. Won a game last night from our New York Knickerbockers, and they're looking to take a commanding 2-0 lead this Friday. So as you guys are listening, we're getting prepared for Game 2. So looking forward to it. The Knicks 3 wins away from their first championship since 1973. First time we've sniffed anything near that in our lifetime, Devin. But it's exciting, man. We'll get into all the baseball stuff. But your initial on the game last night and watching Brunson go out with not one but 2 injuries and watching Barnes fall into his knee and then the twisted ankle and then him coming back and just how pissed he was after the fan interaction with San Antonio fans.
Yeah, roller coaster of a Game 1. You come in extremely confident with how well they've played. And then, the first few minutes out of the gate, they look good. They get a lead. And then the injury happens and it doesn't look good. And they go down by about 10. And you start to get really worried really quickly. But by the end of the game, you're feeling really, really good. Brunson seems fired up in lots of different ways. That's probably dangerous for the Spurs. And whether they come back to New York up 2-0 or tied 1-1, man, that crowd at Madison Square Garden is going to be absolutely insane, especially when they see their star player being pissed off by San Antonio fans. That's just going to give them all the more reason to be absolutely raucous. I'm looking forward to Game 2 on Friday, but I would be lying if I didn't say, like, I'm looking really, really forward, no matter what the score of the series is, when they come back home, just to see what the environment there is going to be like.
Yeah, it seems like the get-in price at MSG is around $6,900. And I saw some tickets going for $7,500 for nosebleeds. So all of us in New York, enjoy the watch parties, enjoy watching on your couch with friends and family, grab some beers, grab some pizza, and watch at home, because unless you're looking to take out a second mortgage to have any sort of good seat at Madison Square Garden, it's just not possible, dude.
Yeah, I was saying to my wife last night, I'm like, I hope that doesn't like keep the real fans out. Like, I want the crowd to be rowdy. And like, if those are the prices, I do worry a little bit about like what kind of crowd are we getting, but I just hope it's loud and rowdy, like I said.
So make sure you guys check us out on social media. Follow us at Table Setters Pod on IG and on X. Devin, of course, running the X machine, posting all the great notables on a daily basis. We're up to about 6.5 thousand followers over there. So we appreciate all the new followers that have come. Hopefully you guys will listen to the show. I understand all the eyes of the sports are on the Stanley Cup playoffs and the finals, of course, with Carolina and Vegas happening. We mentioned the NBA finals, but baseball continues its run. The marathon of a season continues, and the storylines that are emerging here, we're of course going to break it down, but baseball is at the forefront as always.
Yeah, it is. And it's funny because one of our first stories that we'll cover tonight is a New York-based story that I feel like, and maybe you disagree, and we won't talk about it too much right now because it's, on the docket here, but I feel like it would be an even bigger story if it were not for what the Knicks are doing right now in New York. I feel like a lot more fans of the team we're going to talk about would be in a little bit of a panic. I think that exists, but I just feel like the Knicks are taking everybody's attention for a little while. But we'll get to that.
So we're going to hop into our opening say and talk about what's immediately on our mind.
The opening say.
All right. Well, all the great stuff around baseball, of course, that dark cloud has been hanging over us for quite a bit. We've been looking at 2027 with bated breath, and we have our first inkling about where the two sides are residing at this point. We got the initial proposals, the CBA talks. Major League Baseball's next labor battle is officially underway, Evan, and we're still months away, obviously, from the expiration of the current collective bargain agreement on December 1st. The opening proposals from both sides have already revealed the biggest issue on the table. I think we all kind of knew that this was coming. The first proposal is the introduction of a hard salary cap paired with a salary floor beginning in 2027, which is a concept that has historically been a non-starter for the Players Association. So your thoughts on this, concerns, is this a nothing burger of a story? Are we just too far apart? Or is there optimism that they're actually talking right now, but so far away from the deadline?
Oh man, it's tough to judge that. I will say the people that are acting like, oh my God, I can't believe how far apart they are. I'm a little surprised because it's like the initial offers, like this is kind of how negotiations work. Like both sides are going to come in with offers that they know are not going to be accepted because the idea is you want to try to end up meeting in the middle. And if you give the other side too much of what they want early, it's going to lean more towards them. So it seems like a typical negotiation. Are they far apart? Sure. I will say, like, if I want to take the lesser seen point of view here, like, there are some positives. Okay. So, like, I'll start with that. One thing they seem to agree on is that the local TV revenue should be shared at a higher rate. And that's a big one. I think one is coming in with more than the other. I think one side said all of it should be shared, and the other side said, let's like share 90% of it, but that's a good sign. They're not too far apart there. Um, Also, the fact that Major League Baseball has come in saying there should be a salary floor. Like, I know the other sticking point is that they want a salary cap, but saying that, 171 million, I think, would be where they want the floor, something like that. Like basically admitting that, yes, there are teams that are not spending the amount of money they should be. So those are two positives. And I think they both know and have admitted, like, this is not a time where you want to strike. There are too many good things that going on for Major League Baseball. It's as popular as ever. So I'll start with the positives there. Like, we will certainly talk about the negatives and where they're super far apart. But there are a couple things there that I think we can hang our hats on a little bit.
So Rob Manfred was out talking about this, obviously, and to get into the nuts and bolts of the numbers that we're discussing, the salary floor would be set at $171.2 million in the year 2027, so forcing 12 teams to increase payroll by a combined $617 million. At the same time, the proposed salary cap of $245.3 million would require 8 clubs to reduce payroll by a combined $578 million. We can get into the teams. Like the offenders, we know the White Sox, the Athletics, the Guardians, the Marlins would have to spend significantly more. Obviously, the Dodgers, the Mets, the Yankees would have to spend significantly less. But not surprisingly, we know the union remains firmly against this. They don't want to be the Players Association, this era of baseball, that gives in. And I think the league's perspective of all of this, and I think even if the players had a truth serum to this, Devin, I think the proposal and really the option is about competitive balance. And that's been this key word everyone's been discussing. Rob Manfred talked about this competitive balance tax. And really, I mean, he's arguing that it's failed to achieve that what it was designed to. He noted that nearly 80% of the league championship series participants, 85% of the World Series teams, and also 90% of World Series champions over the past decade have come from a top 15 market. So we can get into that. And like, he was fact checking, talking about since 2012, only one bottom 15 market team, which of course was the Kansas City Royals back in 2015, have won a World Series. But whether we want to sit here, I choose to sit on the positive side of the fence that you're discussing. We're having open dialogue. We knew they were going to open up pretty far apart, but that's how discussions work. There is a give and take, and this labor battle is going to be a war of attrition on both sides.
There's no doubt. And I mean, again, there's a lot of posturing going on right now. A big sticking point is, so MLB says we want a 50-50 revenue split, which doesn't sound like necessarily a bad thing. But then MLBPA is saying, well, there's more to it than that. Like, it's not going to end up being 50-50 because A, B, and C. So there's a lot of questions we're still waiting kind of to be answered. And one of them is what I just alluded to. Like, they're going to have to define, like, how would baseball related revenue be defined? Because revenue, you can go a lot of different ways there. And is everything you're thinking of included or not? Also, if there's a cap and a floor, how would those increase over time? Here's a big one. How would Major League Baseball handle guaranteed contracts that are already going to put teams over the cap or that are pushing up against it? What are we doing there? Are we grandfathering things in? And another one that I think will be talked about as we get closer, and I think is a fascinating concept or idea, is an international draft a possibility? right? Like we've talking about like fairness and all that stuff. You see how the Dodgers have had this incredible advantage in the market of Japanese players, right? Because they've basically become a favorite of people over there in Japan to a degree. I'm sure not everybody, but it sure seems like they have an advantage with the Shohei Ohtani effect. So an international draft could change the game completely. So those are some questions we haven't heard much about yet. And the other thing I would say is eventually, as you get closer and there's more give and take, hopefully, and people realize we're going to have to dangle some things, there's got to be some give backs. And I do wonder, I mean, the players will say over and over for years now, decades now, that they will never accept a salary cap. But there is one thing Major League Baseball has that they could eventually offer that I wonder if it changes the tone. And that is letting players reach free agency quicker, sooner, right? And they haven't dangled that carrot yet. So I do wonder if or when that carrot gets dangled as far as like, hey, we'll give the teams one less year of control or something like that of a player, and we'll let players reach free agency quicker or more often. I don't know. It's going to be interesting to see what other things come into these offers that have not come into them yet.
And for now, it's an optics game, of course. They're publicly defending their positions and they're trying to win over fans and media. And it gets to a certain point where you have the skeptics. Of course, the focus is not on this unless you're a diehard baseball fan right now, but it becomes billionaires taking on millionaires. And either way, there's going to be a lot more major topics. You alluded to them: free agency, service time, the other economic issues that will shape this next agreement have yet to be discussed. But I guess the good news, as we continue to reiterate, is that this started well before the deadline. But the bad news is that the most contentious issue we've been discussing since the beginning, and it remains exactly where it's been for decades. So something has to give. And hopefully for the betterment of the game of baseball in the spot that it's in, that we can let cooler heads prevail and get this agreement done before this deadline, December 1st.
Yeah, and the last thing I'll add, I mean, I'll be honest, I've actually been trying not to react too much to these little pieces of news. Like, I'm just glad they're negotiating, and I know a lot of people are panicking, and every little bit of news kind of big reactions. I almost want to ignore it a little bit, but at the same time, especially hosting a podcast like the one we have, I do want to be informed. So I'm trying not to overreact because I know this is early, and like I said before, lots of posturing. This is how negotiations work. But you go back to the competitive thing. Yes, it's rare for these teams to win the whole thing, but like you look at the Guardians, you look at the Brewers, you look at the Rays, and they certainly are an argument, and not just this year, like for a long time now, against the whole concept of it's not an even playing field and only the big market teams are going to win because they're around often and they've found ways. So that is the easy argument from the Players Association as far as just saying there isn't a problem. Like, we're fine. And this year, as much as any, like, you look at some of the teams at the bottom. We said this on this podcast recently. Like, you look at the Mets and the Red Sox and the Tigers struggling. Teams like the Brewers and the Rays once again flourishing, even though the Rays have hit some hard times recently, still well above 500. So it's hard. It's harder right now to make that argument.
Yeah, absolutely. And again, the sides are very far apart right now, but that doesn't mean they can't close quickly. And this conversation, everybody knows the clock is ticking, and to have a strike like we had back in 1994 would just be so detrimental to the game, especially with the popularity of the other sports around the United States. It's just, you can't sit here and say that's the move to make. So getting in a room and having a conversation, the path to a new CBA is likely to be anything but simple, but they're at work doing it right now. But let's get to the meat of the order and discuss the rest of the news around baseball. Keyword baseball, because we got some college stuff to talk about.
Meat of the order.
All right. So, of course, the super regionals, we have a quick update for you guys. And NCAA baseball has been crazy theater. And we've been following it loosely here on this show. We've been meaning to do a little bit more of the conversation of just having a show talking about college baseball and showing it the love. But the field of 64 is officially down to 16. And if regional weekend taught us anything, Devin, it's that the road to Omaha is far from predictable. So let's get into some of the conversation. UCLA is out. Cal Poly emerged from the Los Angeles Regional. Number 2, Georgia Tech is out after Oklahoma stormed through Atlanta and won 2 straight games against the Yellow Jackets, including a walk-off victory in a winner-take-all game. Florida State was also stunned twice by number 4 St. John's in Tallahassee. Florida was eliminated by Troy. Dude, it's been chaos. It's been theater. It's been amazing to see.
Oh, it's been so fun. I tweeted out and I texted you guys too. Like, this has already been better than March Madness, because this has been more mad. I just feel like college basketball over the last couple of years with all the transfers and the money that's in college basketball now, there's a lot more chalk, I feel like, in these tournaments now. Whereas St. John's, like one of our local schools here, getting out of that regional, get to the super regional is just incredible. And it was far from the only one. Like, I'll be honest, if this was professional sports, whoever the commissioner was would be pretty upset, I think, right now. The star power of UCLA and Georgia Tech not being there going forward. A lot of like highly, first round kind of draft guys. I mean, Rock Chalowski is the main one, obviously, but you look at Von Lackey and Georgia Tech and Drew Burris and on and on and on. Maybe not great for business, but for college baseball, I feel like this is actually perfect. Like, this is what's going to get people involved. I will say my dad, who has never been big into college baseball, has been texting me like every 5 minutes when there's a college baseball game on about what's going on. Like, he's so into it this year. So clearly something has hooked him, and I'm sure others that maybe like dabbled a little in college baseball or would turn it on while they kind of flip through looking for something, but never really followed through. I don't know. This year's is absolutely nuts. It's a lot of fun. We're going to see who comes out of this. SEC is an interesting story. I believe they have, 7 teams in the super regionals, and they could potentially have 5 going on to the final 8, which would be, I believe, a record. So there are some other little side stories there. Having a super regional, like, Troy and Little Rock, like, it's just names you wouldn't expect to see. And also we're going to have a little David Goliath. But before we're done with this conversation, we also have to say, like, who we think, at least like 2 teams that we think have the best chance right now.
So, I mean, obviously with Georgia and North Carolina looking like the teams to beat, Georgia cruised through the regional behind dominant pitching and one of the more explosive offenses of the country. And North Carolina looked every bit as impressive as well. They shut out VCU before defeating East Carolina twice, including a regional final where the Tar Heels scored 8 runs in the first 3 innings. But man, this is insane because we look at all these teams, you look at all the madness and you look at the unpredictability. It's good for the sport. It's good for the theater. I used that word before. Texas is another team that comes to mind. They look like one of the more complete teams remaining. Anthony Pack Jr. homered 3 times during regional play. Aiden Robbins hit .429 with 4 home runs and 9 RBIs. And Mississippi State, too. Can't forget about them. They may have made the biggest statement of any team in the field. They jumped into the top tier after Thomas Valinskis struck out 10. You guys saw that. Jacob Parker hit an incredible 700 with 3 home runs. So it's crazy. The Cinderella stories are impossible to ignore here. You talked about Troy, one of the final at-large bids in the tournament, then went into Gainesville, eliminated Florida. This is if you're not paying attention, I understand there's a lot of stuff going around in sports, but change your focus a little bit and check out college baseball. It's been absolutely insane. The St. John's thing, I know we have the bias here in New York, but taking out Florida State twice as a number 4 seed and Little Rock battling through the elimination bracket, it's crazy, man. This has been so fun to watch, and especially with us just starting to get into college baseball in the last few years. And you mentioned the SEC and what they've been able to kind of do, having their presence here, 7 of the teams remaining. And you said 5 teams could potentially get to Omaha. That would be a new record. But the marquee matchup is going to be Georgia versus Mississippi State, because Georgia swept the Bulldogs during the regular season and beat them again in the SEC tournament. But Mississippi State enters playing some of its best baseball of the year. When we did our preview show in that first week of college baseball, they're a team that you got to look at as a potential, I wouldn't say dark horse to win the whole thing, but they're a team that's explosive in every aspect of it. I think Auburn and Ole Miss should be one of the most entertaining series of the weekend as well, while Texas and Oregon are going to be 2 teams that believe they have legitimate championship aspirations, especially with all the Cinderella stories we saw.
Yeah, I think North Carolina might be the team that if I had to pick one would be the one I went with. I just like very versatile talent is what I would say. But Auburn, who you just mentioned, is another one I think will make some noise. I know their path through the regionals wasn't exactly smooth, had a little bit of a scare for sure, but their pitching all season has been pretty damn good, and sometimes pitching can carry you through. Just a note too, that Georgia-Mississippi State matchup, you said, if you've been watching, you see that stud freshman Trey Phelps was ejected pretty controversially in one of the games in the regionals, and he'll be missing the first game of that series because of that, suspended for a game. Your thoughts on that? Did you see the ejection? Were you okay with it? Were you against it? Just quick thoughts on Phelps's ejection.
I would like to see cooler heads prevail, especially in such a big spot, but you see both sides of it. I have definitely have some sympathy for when you let things like this kind of get out of control, but as far as being thrown out of the game, maybe it's something you would want to not see to have. You want to see the best talent stay on the field, but I guess you can't blame it for going that direction because you have to keep your head.
Yeah. I think we have this conversation. We had it just last week about like the Brewers stuff with Uribe, motioning to the other dugout, the Giants celebrations, but like the whole let the kids play thing. These are actual kids at the college level. And even more, you want to let them play. And there's a lot of emotion college baseball. Problem, and I think where Phelps messed up is he's not just celebrating, like he's taunting the other team. And we've talked to a couple college coaches on here where they say we're fine with like that emotion and having fun, but like you do not want to disrespect the opponent. And I think that's where he went. I agree. I wish the umpires could have given a warning or something like that, but they pulled a quick trigger. So.
And then we have Troy versus Little Rock, which is a guaranteed Cinderella story. One of those programs will be headed to Omaha for the first time, which ensures that this year's College World Series will once again feature a team that nobody saw coming playing this deep into June. So we saw the upsets, we saw the walk-offs, we saw dominant individual performances. And this bracket, if you were filling one out, they're shattered at this point. So it's open. The favorites that are still standing, but many of those teams that eliminated those favorites are standing right beside them. And I think anyone could take the crown as we continue to watch the College World Series take hold.
Yeah, I believe it gets started again on Friday. So if you haven't tuned in, it is not too late. I think there'll be some more craziness. It's been a ton of fun.
Well, Devin alluded to this story earlier with all the focus in New York on the New York Knicks, but some troubling news with Aaron Judge and the New York Yankees. And the Yankees have spent the last few days trying to calm the concerns of this Aaron Judge injury story. But updates coming out of New York have only created more questions. And you give Aaron Boone some credit. He's trying to be open and honest about things. Of course, Judge missing his third straight game today. The Yankees continued searching for answers. They got the win against Cleveland, but losing 2 of 3 from them. The discomfort near this right shoulder and rib cage area. So according to Aaron Boone, a specialist confirmed the team's initial diagnosis of a bone bruise near his right rib cage, but additional imaging was ordered to get a more precise look at the injury. Now, at this point, if you're a Yankee fan, if you're a baseball fan thinking about Aaron Judge, the development like that immediately raises concerns because really the message surrounding Judge's condition has changed multiple times. And when it starts to change, you start to have more questions because this was initially, if everyone remembers, described as a shoulder issue, later became a rib injury. Then reports suggested the shoulder discomfort could actually be stemming from the rib area, which makes you think thoracic outlet syndrome. That's another conversation I've heard. More tests being ordered. I don't know. The timing is notable here because if you look at the way Judge has been producing since May 11th, he's gone 14 for 68, which is 206, 1 home run, 8 RBIs, 19 strikeouts. And at this point, he's having a little bit of a down season, hitting 248, a 375 on base, 533 slugging, 17 home runs and 38 RBIs in 59 games. For anyone that is human, okay, you're doing okay. But this is Aaron Judge. He's superhuman. If you go back to 2019, that stress fracture in his right rib, along with the partially collapsed lung after making the diving catch late in the season. I remember it very clearly. He played through the injury during the postseason, ultimately required significant recovery time. Now, the Yankees have not made that clear about it could be related to this or something similar, but the location is similar enough to make me very uneasy to think this might be a longer-term issue, and he may have some significant time on the injured list.
Yeah, I mean, a lot of things swirling around out there. It's like a deeply uncomfortable time for Yankee fans because it's too mysterious, and sometimes you read the tea leaves and you don't like what you're reading. So he was referred to Dr. Gregory Pearl in Dallas, and if you look up Dr. Gregory Pearl on Google, one of the first things you'll see is that he's a leading specialist in thoracic outlet syndrome. So, not what you want to see necessarily, and thoracic outlet syndrome itself is that if that's what it ends up being is also mysterious because there's different types apparently and different levels of this. And I feel like usually we hear this with pitchers, and even with pitchers, it varies greatly. Matt Harvey, it pretty much sent his career tumbling downward, never to recover. Zach Wheeler looks pretty much like Zach Wheeler. So there you go. 2 very different stories of thoracic outlet syndrome. And there's other examples out there as well. But position players is not seemingly as a common of a thing. I've read a lot of different things. I've read something where if it's a certain kind, he could miss 9 to 10 months. I've seen something else that said he could play through it. And it's like, how could those two things be true in the same breath? So you have to wait. The last little press conference I saw with Aaron Boone, he didn't like one of the questions he got. You could tell he was frustrated. That makes me a little uncomfortable too, of like, does he know a little more than he's letting on? So we'll see, man, but it changes everything if he's out for a long time.
So we did just get an update from The Athletic and Brian Hawk, who also covers the New York Yankees. The Yankees have announced that Aaron Judge has a stress fracture in his right rib. He'll be re-imaged in approximately 4 to 6 weeks, but they are confident that he will return this season. It's not what you want. Like, again, this is something that we all kind of saw coming. I didn't think anyone thought he'd be in the lineup today for the day game in the go home against Cleveland, but everyone expected this was something bigger. I mean, for the Yankees, this is something you have to do the next man up. I mean, obviously the organization's priority is determining exactly what the injury was. And it seems like, yes, they identify it's a stress fracture, but the fact that there's more imaging being done makes me believe they don't have their finger on the pulse of what this actually is, which again goes back to throwing the column just being more concerning.
So that's an update, like just within
now,
the last...
just came in hot off the presses. Yep.
Yeah, the extra imaging does make it a little strange. Yeah, I'm seeing it now 21 minutes ago. The team does expect him to return this season, re-imaged in 4. So you're not getting him re-imaged until another month and a half. So this is, I mean, even if he's back, this sounds like a long-term one. So I got to ask you, I got to turn it around. Knowing that at the very least, he's out till, I mean, let's be honest, after the All-Star break.
Right.
As a Yankee fan, looking at the lineup currently constructed, Cody Bellinger playing amazing. Do you still feel pretty good that they're let's not talk about the division and if they can win it, but like, do you see them as a postseason team still? Great pitching staff,
Absolutely.
obviously.
I see them, especially with the American League being in the state that it is and seeing the production from these other players. And I don't think we've seen the best of Jazz yet. I think we're going to see more for some of these other players. It's just who can fill the gap, and they're really big shoes to fill. So I think the identity is the old Moneyball thing where it's maybe 4 players have to replace him. You have to find a rotation just to find filling the gap. And listen, I mean, the pitching may have to carry the identity of the team with Cam Schlittler, the returning Garrett Cole, who's pitching well. You know, he didn't pitch as well on his last time out, but this pitching staff is going to have to carry them, and they have to be able to score runs at a clip. This is an explosive offense, even without Aaron Judge. The biggest thing is my worry is about making sure he's okay for the long term, because as I discussed from 2019, it loomed large, especially into the postseason, and eventually ended their season in outright. Get healthy, make sure he's okay. The fact that the official statement from the New York Yankees say they expect him to return at some point, the word "some point" sticks out to me, because that's like they have no idea what's going on with him, and it is terrible to read. Aaron Boone, his frustration was palpable at that press conference you mentioned. This is one of the biggest questions going to be hanging over the club. And I think once everyone wakes up from this jubilee that is this NBA Finals with the New York Knicks in New York, everyone's like, oh, shit, we need to get this figured out with Aaron Judge. But it's baseball. It's a war, and they have to get right. But the main thing is he's not only a player for 2026, he's your franchise player. Make sure he's okay.
Yeah, a welcome sight would be the return of Giancarlo Stanton, because that, there's not a lot of guys that can put that fear, as far as that power fear, into a pitcher, an opposing pitcher, as Judge. But Stanton, in a different way, not as complete of a hitter, can put that fear like he's going to take your head off if you leave it in the wrong place, hitting it right back at you. So I know he's still trying to work his way back, and obviously he's injury riddled for a decade now. But when he's in there, he's still a pretty damn solid and intimidating hitter. So if they can get him back, it makes you feel a little bit better.
So the bridge from this is talking about being unlucky. And as a Yankee fan, you feel unlucky that this has happened to us as a fan base. But the bridge here is talking about unlucky hitters. And this has been something that people are trying to narrow in about, trying to identify who's a good candidate for a breakout in the second half. So RotoWire put out this article using StatCast data from Baseball Savant, talking about several hitters around MLB that may be performing far better than their traditional numbers suggest. So RotoWire, for those who are unfamiliar with this process, they analyzed 350 hitters with at least 75 plate appearances through June 1st, comparing their actual stats to the expected metrics under StatCast's whole situation. So by combining the gaps between batting average and expected batting average, They also had slugging percentage and expected slugging percentage and weighted on base average and expected weighted on base. So you guys see where this is going. They created this composite, what they're calling a luck gap, to identify hitters whose quality of contact has not translated into results quite yet. So I'll give you guys the list in just a second. But before I present this to our listeners, Devin, is there a significant buy-in on your end that this exists out there where the tide eventually has to turn and bad luck does exist and it's not resulting in the actual production quite yet?
I think for some players, I'm not going to give you a blanket statement across the board like, yes. I have the list. I'm looking at Baseball Savant right now. And anybody, by the way, you can look at this. You can go to custom leaderboards and you can find, look down on the drop down list for BA minus XBA or SLG minus XLG. And then you can, order it by that and really take a look at the unluckiest hitters, but also the luckiest, like the guys that have numbers that they're expected to have way worse. And it is fascinating, and sometimes will make you feel better about a player on your favorite team that is struggling if the results show that they're unlucky. And other times it'll make you feel like, uh-oh, if it shows that one of your well-performing players is getting super lucky. But some of the names are surprising. And like one guy early in the year that was at the top of this list, not even early, like even just like 4 weeks ago, Ketel Marte was like, and he proved it right as he started to break out. And I think we'll continue to kind of come back towards where he's supposed to be. I mean, Jose Ramirez is on there. Not to read the list for you, but those are two guys that make you buy into it a little bit because they're proven, consistent, all-star caliber players.
Yeah, and I think looking at the names, I agree with you. I think you have to kind of take each situation on its own about watching these at-bats because there is the eye test when you're watching a baseball game. And I know we get the New York thing to bring it back to basketball. Josh Hart took aim at the analytics and he was making, and the roommates podcast with him and Jalen Brunson, they were discussing how Cleveland was preparing for a game 5 and that the analytical finals between the Cleveland Cavaliers and the Oklahoma City Thunder was getting ready to take way for the finals. So there's an extreme of buying, and there's a lot of baseball bias that buys completely into data like StatCast provides and the expected batting average. But there is an in-between, and I truly believe that. We've been watching baseball for a long time. The name that popped up to me, for me, is Ke'Bryan Hayes. And if you look at him as far as just his idea of, you look at him as a disappointing player, if we're being honest. Like Ke'Bryan Hayes came in as a guy that you expected more when he was a young player. He's hitting just 142 with a 225 slugging percentage, but StatCast is projecting a much stronger profile for him. So for you, I mean, these are players that you're looking at. If you're looking at like fantasy baseball, is this a tool you're going to be using to potentially get you to be like, I'm going to buy into Ke'Bryan Hayes? Because the gap is negative 0.420, which is the largest in baseball. So according to the underlying data, he's significantly making better contact than his stat line would indicate. Is that name, is it invalidating of the list in order for you to look at this?
This is for batting average or slug? Where I don't see him anywhere on the list I'm looking at, unless it's just a.
Yeah, I have the. I'll send you the list I was looking at. This is the RotoWire article, so it might be a different assessment they're using,
or maybe it's a couple days old or something and it's changed. Here's what I'll say. You know, for Ke'Bryan Hayes, you could tell me as much as you want that he's been unlucky this year, and I'm going to go back and look at his stats for his career and say, well, he's been unlucky forever. Then. No, if you're a fantasy baseball player and you even consider picking up Ke'Bryan Hayes on your squad, you need to stop playing fantasy baseball. I don't care what the luck numbers say. He's never really proven to be a good hitter, a good glove that it just kind of can't figure it out offensively. Now, I will say there are some that jump out to me. Like I already named Ketel Marte, Jose Ramirez. They're considered by batting average the 4th and 5th unluckiest players in Major League Baseball this year. Right. And I'll show you. So Ketel Marte, the average is 259. His expecting batting average is 306. Okay. Jose Ramirez, 245. His expected batting average is 289. And you can go to the slugging percentage as well. The funny thing is there's another name that jumps out to me here. The 16th unluckiest hitter by batting average is Yordan Alvarez. He's actually, think about how good he's been. He's leading Major League Baseball in slugging percentage, and he's actually a little bit unlucky. Like his numbers could be better if things went more his way. Even in slugging percentage, he's like pretty unlucky. Actually, the 7th unluckiest player for slugging percentage Like that's shocking to me because you would not expect a guy leading the league in OPS to be considered unlucky. And you look on the other side too, I think it's worth mentioning. You look at batting average, one of the luckiest players, according to this, is Riley Green. He's batting 311. XBA is only 264. So there is that side of things too. I know you're not going to like this because I know this guy's your boy this year. Otto Lopez, his average is 332. That's a hell of an average. Expected batting average is supposed to be 296. So even though 296 is still pretty damn good and you'll take it, he's considered pretty lucky this year so far. So I don't know. I mean, what do you lean towards with this? Are you taking it with a grain of salt? I know you said it depends on the player, but is this something that you enjoy looking at and find some value in, or it's kind of all for naught?
I just think it's a tool in the toolbox for you. And looking at, I use this more as a fantasy baseball type of tool where you can look at a player who may be closer to breakout than a lot of the current numbers suggest and trying to be ahead of the curve and using the right metrics. Obviously, expected statistics, in my opinion, are not perfect predictors. They're not going to be something that can provide you the absolute answer because, as we said, there's more to this, like the Cabrian Hayes piece of this. And the article I have is RotoWire, and this is updated June 1st. So they do have him, and it might just be a different metric they're using as far as composite, but they believe he's the most unlucky hitter according to 350 qualified hitters. And the thing is, he's a player that probably goes in the bucket of there's more going wrong with the player than just the expected stats. Like, yes, he's making contact, but we know who Brian Hayes as an offensive player, who he is. The Yordan Alvarez thing is fascinating to me as well, because as you mentioned, the composite luck gap and watching the batting average and all those things, he's still having a very good year. And I saw you post on our Twitter at Table Setters Pod that he's a league leader in a lot of these offensive categories. So imagine, given the quality of his contact, that we may be in more success for Yordan Alvarez, as hard as that to believe. The underlying metrics suggest that he could have some positive attributes going towards the second half of the season, which is insane because I feel like as a fantasy owner, he's been someone who's been hotter than hell for most of the season outside of short bursts.
Yeah, it's a pleasure to watch the dude, man. You just hope he continues to stay healthy because he's reminding people again. It almost seems like it's an every other year thing for him, where like he comes out and reminds people that like he's not far from the Shohei Ohtani Aaron Judge category. He's really not. When he's healthy, he's that damn good. As a Met fan, I will say, looking at this list, Bo Bichette is considered the unluckiest player in the league when it comes to slugging percentage. His slugging percentage is 120 points lower than expected. And Marcus Semien is also in there, 91 points lower than his expected slugging percentage. So they're both top 10 unlucky players. So that makes me want to buy into it and think that it's going to turn around and they'll get closer to the back of their baseball cards. But I can't completely buy it yet.
I think what's affecting the list that we were looking at differently is the inclusion of WOBA. They have added batting average, slugging, and WOBA together to create a composite luck gap. And I think not including WOBA, some of these players fall in between, because I have Bo Bichette on here as well, looking at the RotoWire one, Victor Caratini, Lawrence Butler. I mean, he's been having an awful season and has essentially become a bench player for the Athletics. And maybe we're looking at more expected stats to be a little bit better. He's a guy that the Athletics in their offensive core is looking to build upon. But either way, we know that the luck gap, no matter how you're slicing it, what you're looking to include in this, every batted ball gets assigned an expected outcome based on the exit velocity. So again, do you buy into that? Because all the ballpark effects, all those things, the launch angle, some cases for some players, it's sprint speed. There's a very individual mathematic equation that goes into this. Either way, it's just another tool in the toolbox. I wouldn't say that all these players that have all this bad luck, maybe they continue to hit into bad luck. Sometimes thus is life. 2026 might just be an unlucky season for some of these players, or maybe their approach needs to change. But either way, it's something that's worth looking into, and it's fascinating. I mean, you can even look at the Rangers having two players on the list, Brandon Nimmo, Corey Seager, the composite gap they have, and also looking at Manny Machado. He's been pretty unlucky as well. Jackson Merrill's been pretty unlucky. Interesting to see some of these players, and feel free to go through.
Yeah, I'll just quickly give you a quick rundown depending on the one you're looking at. So if you're looking at WOBA minus X-WOBA, the 5 unluckiest hitters in the league would be Bo Bichette, Will Smith of the Dodgers, Brandon Nimmo, Marcus Semien, and Dylan Dingler. And Dingler's been damn good in a lot of ways. If you look at it by slugging, the unluckiest players are very similar, just slightly different. Bo Bichette, Will Smith, Brandon Nimmo again, and then Mike Trout, Marcell Ozuna. And this is as of today, June 4th. And then if you just want to look at it by batting average, the unluckiest players, Dylan Dingler again, Manny Machado, as you mentioned, Bo Bichette again, Ketel Marte, Jose Ramirez. So, I mean, if you're I will say this, if you're a fantasy baseball player and someone in your league is getting a little annoyed with Jose Ramirez's performance this year, oh my God, I wouldn't hesitate to go try to buy him low. I mean, that's a perfect buy low candidate. Hopefully the manager in your league that has him realizes like, this is not a guy ideal unless I'm getting blown away, even in a bad season. But just saying, that might be worth checking up on.
So one guy who's not unlucky has been Corbin Carroll. And some of the numbers, there was an article posted today on Fangraphs by Ryan Blake. And he talked about just some of the numbers we've seen from Corbin Carroll. We can sit here and talk about the speed. We can talk about the triples. But what he was discussing was the damage he's doing on left-handed pitchers. And what we've been seeing from him, for most left-handed hitters, facing a left-handed pitcher, I would say is a disadvantage, right? So the ball moves away from them. The breaking balls are far too difficult to recognize and square up. And managers often look for the advantages, maybe to platoon for a lesser player. Corbin Carroll is a superstar player. He's going to play every day. And throughout baseball history, even many elite left-handed hitters have shown some weakness against left-hand pitching. Not Corbin Carroll. We know how good he is. So the first 2 months, 2026, he owns a remarkable 219 WRC plus against left-handed pitchers. For those unfamiliar with WRC plus, we discussed some numbers here. 100 represents league average. A 219 mark means Carroll has been 119% better than average major league hitter in those situations. So if you want to appreciate how absurd he's been, again, I'm a Corbin Carroll owner. I'm a Corbin Carroll enthusiast. Fangraphs found that if the season ended today, his 219 WRC plus against lefties would rank as the third best left-on-left season since 2002. The only seasons ahead of him belonged to Barry Bonds, who posted a 278 WRC plus against lefties in 2002 and a 224 mark back in 03. So if you think about that, again, Barry Bonds, anytime you see his number next to anything, first of all, it's the appreciation for Barry Bonds. Like, I just look at his numbers. Whenever his name pops up, it's insane to look at his season. But I think for Corbin Carroll, it's like putting in that category, and that's Barry Bonds at the absolute peak of his powers. There is an important caveat, of course, because Carroll has only accumulated 78 plate appearances against left-handed pitching so far. 500 batting average on balls in play against lefties suggests that we will have some regression coming, but nobody expects him to be continue to produce in the Barry Bonds. But what's fascinating is it doesn't seem to be a fluke. So Ryan Blake, I mentioned, go ahead and check this article, did a great job, talked about Carroll's adjustments to both the stance and the approach over the last two seasons. Because if you look at the 26 season, it looks a little bit different this year. Carroll moved roughly 3 inches further away from home plate, one of the largest positioning adjustments made by any hitter in all of baseball. So we built some swing changes for him, implemented before the 25 season, which helped him transform into an even better hitter. So I think we're looking at Carroll kind of approaching and covering the strike zone a little bit better. Because if you, again, I've been owning Corbin Carroll for a long time. I believe you traded me Corbin Carroll back in the day. Is that correct, Evan?
Yeah, just so no one kills me for it. We Corbin Carroll was still a prospect, had not made his major league debut, and I flipped him to Steve, who I think was a little bit out of the playoff race at the time, in exchange for Logan Webb. And by the way, head-to-head points league, I would say our league, the points we have lean a little bit towards like solid pitchers that give you length can really go a long way in this league. And I won a championship that year, and Steve has owned Corbin Carroll since. He's been a keeper of his. So it's one of those rare trades that I think came out smelling very, very good on both sides. Don't get me wrong. Like, I wish I could own Corbin Carroll at some point here. But I'll take the championship from that year as well.
So mentioning how he's improved, I'm not going to sit here and break down all of his stats, but just looking at 2024, the stats were kind of fascinating because he was struggling badly against pitches on the inner third of the plate. The expected weighting on base per average on contact, which is a huge number, ex-Wobacan, which is another stat that you kind of dive deep into, on inside pitches was just 238. That jumped to 363 and 25, and now it's 509 in 2026. So there's a huge jump on those pitches. So by moving further off the plate, I think he's making it easier to square on those inside pitches, and we're seeing him adjust. Again, small sample size right here. So we'll see if he can continue that pace. But I think we're watching a special season from Corbin Carroll. And I know I mentioned the triples, I kind of breeze right past that. But what we're seeing from him, it's pretty damn historic. And Corbin Carroll's a special player. I understand he plays in Arizona, maybe not on the main markets, but he's appointment TV every time he's on your screen.
Yeah, he is a special player. You nailed it. And like, this is one of my favorite stories and like underreported stories I think that's going on right now. And I had to look up more about it. And I tweeted about this earlier. So he's hitting .411 against left-handed pitching. which is pretty incredible as a left-handed hitter, and well documented how, like you said, how left-handed hitters, a lot of them struggle against left-handed pitching. Um, just for reference, so 73 at bats against left-handed pitchers, hitting 411. So I had to look up like who in the past that have had at least 70 at bats against left-handed pitchers as a left-handed hitter have had a batting average above 400. And obviously the season's not done yet, but the list is short. 21 left-handed hitters in history have hit 400 or better versus left-handed pitchers in at least 70 at bats. In the last 25 years, there's only two examples. David Ortiz in the year 2000 hit 423 against left-handed pitching in 78 at bats. Ichiro, I mean, another good name to be in a category with. Ichiro in 2004 hit 404 versus left-handed pitching in 208 at bats, so even more impressive getting that at bat number over 200. So definitely not a fluke there for Ichiro. And 17 of those 21 examples were before 1950. So it's like something that used to happen more than it does now. Best ever, George Sisler back in 1922 hit 472 and 163 at bats against left-handed pitching. But I think another thing worth pointing out just to make the point is if you want to know how rare or how hard it is, look at other examples. Evan Carter is the perfect example. Wouldn't you say Evan Carter has kind of the same or could have had the same profile as Corbin Carroll? Speedy, right? Smaller size, skinny, wiry, center field type, right? Hopefully triples hitter, can go chase fly balls. But the difference is that one can hit left-handed pitching and one just can't even sniff it. Evan Carter's hitting 0.37. 0.37 against left-handed hitting. And that is what has held him back. And we've talked about this for years now. I remember we talked to Jared Sandler, one of the Rangers TV personalities on here. Great conversation with him sometime last year. I think spring training last year, actually, where we asked him, like, can Evan Carter take the next step? And he was very frank, like, only if he can start hitting left-handed pitching at all. And then they trade for Brandon Nimmo, and we think, all right, Nimmo had the same issue early in his career. Maybe he'll help Evan Carter be able to hit left-handed pitching because Nimmo's gotten way better at it over the years. I'll be honest, I don't know where he is this year, but he's come a long way if you've watched Brandon Nimmo. No, 0.37. Like Gavin Sheets, who different profile, power hitter, hitting 138. Vinny Pasquantino, 141 against left-handed pitching. He's a vet. So, like a lot of left-handed hitters struggle against the nasty left-handed pitching they see today. So what he is doing right now is unbelievable. And I hope he can stay even just above, like, let's say 350 for the season, because he's going to put himself in historic company over a full season if he can do that. Unbelievable. You got to love it.
And it's also the maturation of a player who's getting older, understanding who he is as a player, adapting to his skill set. It's fun to watch because we say this all the time with pitchers, and I think we take for granted on the offensive side, adjustments can be made. We mentioned the batting stance, but there's also just an adjustment of how you're working these at-bats and his approach within at-bats. If you're watching him during the game, his first pitch swing rate against left-handed pitching has dropped to just 30.8%, and he's forcing pitchers to throw strikes and get ahead in the count and find a way. And once he gets the advantage, he becomes a little bit more aggressive. You look earlier in his career, that first pitch swing rate is something that was much higher. And that just comes with maturation of a player, a guy who understands that he's going to get the pitch he wants and wait for it. And one of the biggest developments for him, something that Evan Carter can't hit, it's against the breaking balls. Left-handed pitchers are frequently trying to steal strikes with breaking pitches once they fall behind. And Corbin Carroll has adjusted to that. And that's what we're seeing. He's swinging at more breaking balls when ahead in the count while simultaneously making dramatically better contact. His whiff rate against those pitches has fallen from 35.3% last season to just 8% this year. So pretty cool to see a player that's just firing on all cylinders. Again, still kind of early. I know we're looking June as like, okay, the season's getting going, but he's going to face more left-handed pitching throughout the season. But as you said, hopefully he can continue and the adjustments are there. Either way, if he comes back down to earth, I think the underlying changes have made him a better player. And the other thing is just stay healthy, stay in the field.
Yeah, and I think if this was someone else, you might look at it and be like, all right, fluke. But because it's Corbin Carroll, I don't know. I kind of buy into it. I'm not saying he's going to hit 411 against left-handed pitching for the entire season, but like I do kind of buy into the fact that I think he's found something and he could sustain being a really good left-handed hitter against left-handed pitching.
Well, let's get to what's the word and talk about other news around baseball and give our feedback on it.
What's the word?
All right, what's the word here? We're going to be talking about Shohei Ohtani lowering his ERA to 0.74 with a gem last night, 7 innings pitch, and reaching base 5 times. So my word for this, Devin, is it's a hyphenated word. It's superhuman. At this point, Shohei Ohtani is doing things in baseball history that simply doesn't have any comparison for. Watching him last night against the aforementioned D-backs may have not included a towering home run like the previous start, but it might have been arguably his most complete two-way game of this season, at least, throwing 6 scoreless, as I mentioned, lowering the ERA to an absurd 0.74 through 10 starts, reaching base 5 times, helping the Dodgers win 7-0 in Arizona. And the performance, and I'll pass it to you in a second, since 1900, this is historic. Only 4 players have recorded at least 6 scoreless innings on the mound while reaching base 5 times in the same game. The other 3 were Mel Stoudemire in 1964, Mel Parnell in 1951, Hod Eller in 1920. The difference is that all 3 of those pitchers threw complete game shutouts because pitchers could not remain in the lineup after leaving the mound. So Ohtani is the first player to do this under modern rules, made possible by the aptly named Ohtani rule, which allows a two-way player to remain in the game. So unreal. Feels like we're on a precipice of potentially adding an NL Cy Young award to his mantle.
Yeah, I mean, like we've said in past episodes, craziest Cy Young race of all time. Like, just unreal. But my word is unicorn, because that's what we're seeing here. So he's been brilliant on the mound. And here's the thing. As of a few weeks ago, the talk was he's been so good on the mound, but he's not hitting as well. So maybe this is just, even we said, like, he just seems to be focusing on pitching more. Maybe he'll be slightly less of a hitter this year for whatever reason. Well, let me stop you there, because if you go to Fangraphs and use the date filter and just look at the last 3 weeks, he is the hottest hitter in Major League Baseball. Like, kind of quietly too, like not talked about all that much. In the last 3 weeks, he leads Major League Baseball in OPS, batting average as well, and WRC plus. Also has a 19-game on-base streak, which doesn't sound like anything crazy, but it is the second longest active streak currently. So I guess we shouldn't be surprised. Shohei Ohtani back to being the best hitter on the planet, at least in the last 3 weeks, while being an absolute certified ace Cy Young contender on the mound. He's a unicorn.
Yeah, Will Smith said it in the post game. He's the best player that's ever walked this earth. And sometimes you'd be like, okay, that's hyperbole. It's a teammate. You're speaking nice to him, but he's doing things that are just absolutely unheard of. You don't have a comparison for them. And I know a lot of baseball fans out there, if you're not a Dodger fan, maybe you feel like they're throwing Shohei Ohtani down your throat any chance they can, but we're watching something special. And if you were to see some of these stats from back in the day, you read about it, you would think they were exaggerated. And that, again, just kind of take that in for a second and think about what he's been doing just this year, what he's done in years past. It's just unreal to see. He's superhuman. He's a unicorn. He's special.
Yeah, we're never going to see it again, guys. So please do yourself a favor and actually try to enjoy it.
So we are saying goodbye to Christopher Sanchez. Historic scoreless streak finally coming to the end on Wednesday night as well, but not before the Phillies left-hander accomplished something no pitcher in franchise history had ever done. Of course, we talked last week about him setting the record. So the streak ends at 50 2/3 scoreless inning, 5th longest all time, tops for a lefty. And after a month without allowing a run, he's thrown an RBI single to Jackson Merrill in the 7th inning of Phillies 3-2 win over San Diego. The streak is now the longest in Phillies history, as we discussed. The longest scoreless streak ever recorded by a left-handed pitcher, and the 5th longest single season scoreless streak since 1893, when the pitching mound was moved to its current distance. So again, man, like, historic stuff here. And then my word was historic. And this is something that we talk about, the NL Cy Young race. This is another guy throwing his name into the hat.
Yeah, I mean, my word is brilliance, because that's what we just watched. You went through some of the numbers. If you listen to last, sorry. Not bad, guys. My voice is suffering here after just getting over a bad cold, but trying to get through. Yeah, if you listen to the episode last week, my voice sounded a little better, but we also talked a lot about the numbers and all the different historic numbers where you could put him. Obviously, he's put himself even higher. So I'm not going to get into a million different things there. I just will say I feel like he has put himself on that next level of a Tarek Skubal, of a Paul Skeens, and we should be, as baseball fans, so grateful for some of the pitching we're getting to watch at the same time. We just talked about Ohtani, Skeens, Skubal, Christopher Sanchez, Jacob Mizorowski, on and on, Cam Schlittler, like on and on and on. It's unbelievable Also, shout out to the umpire last night who, after he gave up that run, did the whole pretending to clean up a mess at home plate so the crowd could give him the ovation that he deserved. And it was a long one. And they let it go for a while. And I think well deserved in front of the home crowd. So, yeah, Christopher Sanchez, man, I wouldn't be surprised if he starts another scoreless streak, gets to double digits, and, makes us watch him again. But he's absolutely brilliant.
So the National League East is ripe with great pitching, and Max Meyer has officially broken through. And for years, we've been discussing Max Meyer, looking at one of baseball's great what-if prospects. The talent was obvious. If you've been a fantasy baseball player, you kind of watched him, been frustrated that the results never followed. Now, years after the injuries and the setbacks and questions on whether he would ever become the pitcher that many scouts envisioned when he was selected third overall back in 2020, he's delivering. We had the Michael Bauman article on Fangraphs talking about how he's emerged as the ace of the Marlins rotation this year. Entering his latest start, he was 5-0 with a 2.97 ERA through 12 starts, leading the rotation in both ERA and WAR, despite sharing a staff with some other quality pitchers as well. My word for him is redemption, because this is a guy who was written off, maybe again reaching the majors pretty quickly, debuting just 2 years after being drafted, but the rookie season ended after only 6 innings, suffered that torn UCL, required Tommy John. He mixed the second half of 2022, all of 23. 24 looked pretty promising early before being surprisingly sent back to AAA by the Miami Marlins. He returned later that season, but struggled to eventually land on the IL with shoulder bursitis. So 2025 was another struggling season. He posted a 4.73 ERA. The FIP was at 4.47 before a hip injury ended his season in June. Everyone's like, all right, much the prospect hype has faded. You want to talk about post-hype prospects? He was one of them. He was approaching his late 20s, throwing just 127 two-third major league innings, carried a career 5.29 ERA. He had every reason to believe that you should just move on from him. Max Meyer is not moving on. So we can go through the numbers, but either way, my story is redemption. He's a guy who you feel good for when you see this.
So I looked at this slightly different as far as coming up with a word. I came up with a word based on the statement. If you say Max Meyer isn't officially an ace, my word would be premature for that statement. So I'm sorry, I'm not trying to be a pessimist here. Don't get me wrong. I like what I see. Of course, how could you not? I'm just a little skeptical. The expected ERA is 3.64, it's still solid, but that's much higher. We talked about the whole expected batting average, expected slugging percentage, and how it can kind of paint a picture of luck one way or the other. Well, if you're buying that, it certainly paints a little bit of a picture of some luck for Max Meyer here. The actual ERA 2.81, significantly lower. The xFIP is 3.56, while the actual FIP is 3.04. A couple other things give me pause. The home run per fly ball rate is just 6.9%. Wonderful. But if you look at past seasons, it's always been around 20% or above. So it gives me now, could he improve something that has made that happen? Of course. But I want to see it happen for a more sustained period of time before I really believe that he's absolutely gotten past some of the home run issues that he's had in the past. Still walks too many people. If you look at that, that's something that you're not going to love. Gets barreled up a lot. High hard hit percentage. Exit velocities are high. So those are things to watch to see if he comes back down to earth a little bit. I believe he's a very solid major league pitcher for sure. There's a reason he was a very high prospect for years. I just need more to declare him a true ace. Is he the ace of that staff right now by his performance? Sure. Do I buy him as a complete, total, long-term ace? Not yet.
Yeah, durability remains the biggest question. Again, we're looking at not only the injury history, I kind of went through the litany of history, but he's approaching the largest workload he's had since high school. And I mean, you talk about the shoulder stuff, the Tommy John stuff, and the hip problems. It's fair to wonder whether we're going to see him hold up. So again, fair questions. And the home run suppression, is he going to be able to continue that? But again, some of the underlying numbers you mentioned, the expected and all that, but only Shohei Ohtani has generated more value from his breaking pitches than this season than Max Meyer. So I think kind of it's for me, it's good to watch the redemption story, as you said before. But you're right. It's easy to sit here and be a little bit skeptical that this is going to be a full long season of this, because we've kind of seen the injuries kind of fill the back of the baseball card a little bit more than just a full season of getting all his starts through a 162 game campaign.
And that's basically what I'm saying. Like, he's thrown 73 and 2/3, which is better than the last 2 seasons. But like, if you want to be a true ace, you got to be able to do this long term and get at least to the 150 inning mark, I'd say, if not more than that. So let's see, as he gets higher and higher, over 100 innings, is he starting to hit a wall a little bit? Is he able to pitch through minor injury and nagging things and soreness, or is he a guy that's going to struggle once that hits? So, um, again, love what I'm seeing. I do love the redemption arc for Max Meyer. As far as where his ceiling actually is, I think we're still finding out.
So our final what's the word here is Jeff Passan making it clear, or at least saying maybe the Braves should trade for Tarek Skubal. My word is scary, because if the Braves were able to acquire Tarek Skubal, it would be scary for the rest of the league. Now we're kind of 2 months away, and you and I were sitting here potentially looking at trade deadline options as one of our episodes in the future. And Tarek Skubal is going to be dominating that conversation. Whether he's going to be traded or not remains to be seen. The Tigers are struggling, as we referenced many times on the show. Jeff Passan, of course, reporting maybe in some downtime of baseball, other things are taking note. He really is just saying that they should consider it. He's not reporting that Atlanta is pursuing him actively. Discussions are being had, so don't take it that way. I think he's just examining what contenders should do at the deadline, and I think it's pretty clear for a lot of teams, a lot of contenders. If Tarek Skubal's available, every contender should at least kick the tires. And for Atlanta, I think the fit does make sense. I mean, they've weathered the injuries throughout their rotation, still find themselves positioned in what could be a legitimate championship run, whether you believe it or not. And reinforcements are on the way. But at the same time, if you really want to compete with the top tier of the NL and eventually win the whole damn thing, they're going to have to acquire a front end starting pitcher. And maybe Tarek Skubal is the guy. Now, the other question is, how are they going to get this deal done? What would the price cost? That remains to be seen. But it's at least one of those conversations. Are they willing to get rid of J.R. Ritchie? Are they willing to trade Didier Fuentes? These guys are names that otherwise untouchable, but it might make sense to be trade partners. At least, again, kick the tires. My word is scary if it happens.
Yeah, my word is crowded. As in, it's going to be a crowded field of who should and would like to trade for Tarek Skubal. And if that he really is put out there, I know the Tigers right now are denying that he is out there or will be. But if he does end up being out there, I mean, everyone that's within the playoff mix is going to be interested. And it's not just, I don't think it's just going to be the teams that think they can extend him, because a guy of this caliber, if you believe you can go win a World Series and you can rent him for a couple months to try to help you with that, even if he's gone after that, it does depend on the farm system. Like, you're going to have to give up a lot. Do you feel like your farm system is good enough to take that hit where it'll still be pretty solid afterwards? Or do you just not care? I mean, if you're the San Diego Padres, they've shown that they're okay with doing damage to their system for the now. The Brewers have been mentioned recently as like, hey, this is the year they should go for it. Imagine adding a Skubal to Jacob Mizorowski and Kyle Harrison. Like, what fun that would be, even though he's not going to be a Brewer long term. Like, go get your championship. Right, knock the Dodgers off the pedestal. Maybe he'll be a Dodger next year, but like, we're going to take this World Series. And it kind of reminds you of the CC Sabathia stuff when they acquired him as a rental, and he basically put them on his back at least to get to the postseason. After that, maybe a different story, but and he ended up with the Yankees the next year. But sometimes it's worth it if you think you can go get a World Series. And even though the Brewers example, like, even though they didn't get a World Series that year with Sabathia, like, he's still remembered very fondly there. I believe they just inducted him into their, I don't know what it is, the Wall of Fame or something like that in Milwaukee recently, actually. But the Braves, I don't know. I don't know if they have enough. I mean, you mentioned J.R. Ritchie. I think Cam Caminiti, who's still very young, is an interesting piece. A name I've seen a lot recently, Eric Hartman, who again is further away, but a lot of people really, really like. The thing is, I think the one thing I buy into that I've heard is I believe the Tigers are going to look for some talent that is very close to major league ready, if not already major league ready. The Brewers have some of that. I mean, they just acquired Jet Williams from the Mets. He's a guy, I mean, Jesus Made certainly makes it seem like he's not going to take very long to get to the major leagues. There's some other guys there as well that you really like. But here's the real part of the story. I think no matter who is making offers, even if they're very tempting to the Tigers, I think the Tigers are going to take every single offer back to the Los Angeles Dodgers, because the Los Angeles Dodgers have seemingly an endless supply of talent, and nobody can take the hit like they can. So you look at it, and as far as almost major league ready talent, River Ryan, like should be pitching on a major league squad right now. So if he's in the offer, I mean, you said this during our prediction episode that you could see him as a Detroit Tiger after the deadline. I mean, Zaire Hope and Josue DePaula, they're number 1 and 2 prospects. Mike Sirota, a guy they got in a deal for Cincinnati for Gavin Lux, who stayed in Cincinnati briefly and now is in Tampa Bay. It's crazy, some of these guys they have in the system. Jackson Ferris, James Tibbs. You could go on and on. So that's the real story thing. I think no matter who comes knocking at the Tigers' door, I think they're going to take the offers back to the Dodgers and say, can you beat it? And I think the Dodgers, most of the time, are going to say, yeah, we can beat it.
Yeah, there's two different sides to look at this for Atlanta. Obviously, if they believe, as you said, this roster has another World Series run in it, there is a compelling argument to push the chips into the middle of the table. There's also the black cloud we referenced in our opening say, 2027. Next season's not guaranteed. So to go out there and trade these young players or find a package that makes the most sense to top the Dodgers or whatever it may look like, it's a tough pill to swallow to only get a few months of Tarek Skubal, and it doesn't guarantee a World Series. We know that, but at the same time, all those considering factors, especially with the lockout looming potentially, that might play a larger part. Either way, I think as each day progresses and we see how disappointing the Detroit Tigers are, they have to consider making the move, because you can't walk away empty-handed after everything that went down. If he's not willing to sign an extension, we believe that he's not going to be back. You have to find a way to get something to better this team in the immediate and also in the future.
Yeah, it'll be fascinating, because I just wonder if this is the year where those other competitors, the Brewers and the Braves and other teams, finally say, like, no, we're not letting the Dodgers get this guy. Like, we don't care how much it hurts. We're going to prevent them from getting him to three-peat. Like, it's going to be fascinating. And we know how expensive pitching was last year. I don't see it getting any cheaper this year, honestly. Like, is there a world where everyone balks at the Tigers' price tag and they get left holding the bag, and Skubal ends his time as a Tiger, but then they get nothing for him in return and he leaves? Would some Tiger fans be okay with that? I don't know. I mean, think about the Angels, man, where they had the chance to move Ohtani and replenish that system, and apparently had some really good offers on the table. Some of that news has actually come out recently, years later, and they refused to do it. Artie Moreno just refused. There was things out there that said he didn't want to be the guy that traded Shohei Ohtani. Well, you were the guy that signed him, put him with Mike Trout for years, did nothing, and then got nothing in return for him. So, and let him go across town and become an even bigger star. So if you're the Tigers, like, it's a tough decision, man, but like you can't be left holding an empty bag.
So for the CBA negotiations, I do believe that does loom large in the conversations, not only with this trade potentially happening, but really what the contracts look like in the future. And I think both sides, owners and players, believe that everyone should be making more money. But again, maybe my question to you before we move to the sub-2 ERA crew is, if you're Tarek Skubal and we don't know what contract structures are going to be looking like post 2027, I understand he's a Scott Boras guy, but isn't there like a small part of your head as you lay down on a pillow, be like, I can get guaranteed money right now from the Tigers with an extension and know what I'm be getting paid? Meanwhile, in the future, like, you have life-changing generational money. But is there a world with a salary cap, if they agree to it, that he may be getting less money than he originally intended to in the first place? It's a very confusing thing. Wouldn't you rather be grandfathered in with a big contract?
Yeah, I mean, I guess there's a little bit of that fear. But like I said earlier during the CBA conversation, we don't know what they're going to do with the whole, like, grandfathering in current contracts that take teams over the limit. So I don't know. It's a good question. I don't really have a good answer to it. Is it in his head a little bit? I would assume as a human being, he's got to be thinking about it a little bit for sure.
Because if we live in a world like the NBA does with the max deals, like, obviously these superstar players are leaving money on the table. And if you follow a model similar to the other competitive leagues in the United States, they're going to be getting paid less. And of course, the NBA and the NFL, they have other ways of making money. They can structure contracts, but right now it's free enterprise in baseball. Like they can just get as much money as they want. And maybe the Tigers, if they offered you whatever amount of money, even though it's less than fair market value in a normal free agent season, it's still maybe more money in the future guaranteed. I don't know. It's a weird conversation to have because, like you said, we're working on this game board that we don't know exactly where the pieces are going to lie when the CBAs agree to after December 1st.
Do you think the Tigers actually have made an aggressive offer, though? I haven't heard anything about them making a real offer.
I don't, but maybe if Scott Boras goes there, or again, if Team Scooble puts it out there that he's willing to stay, aren't the Tigers almost pressured to keep him? Because how could the fan base be okay with letting the guy go if he wants to be a Detroit Tiger? So it's like this game of momentum on both sides.
Yeah, I got the feeling when they signed Fromber for a very rich deal. To me, that was the writing on the wall. They knew Scooble was gone. Like they already knew. I don't think you signed Fromber to that deal if you feel like you're going to negotiate with Scooble. They're
It's fair.
paying a
Absolutely.
hefty amount. Like that to me was the sign of like we're signing this guy because we don't want to go through a rebuild when Scooble leaves. We want to have another guy to hang our hat on at least for the next year or two while other guys develop, where we still feel like a playoff team. Little did they know they don't look like they're going to feel like a playoff team this year. I don't think they saw that coming.
No, I don't think anyone saw the offense performing as disappointing as it's been thus far. Still a lot of baseball to be played, and maybe they can do to the Cleveland Guardians what the Cleveland Guardians did to them last year.
Of course.
Certainly on the table.
Yeah, for sure.
But let's move into the sub-2 ERA crew and talk about guys like Shohei Ohtani that are topping this list.
Sub-2 ERA crew.
All right, so sub-2 ERA crew. Here's the thing: we are at the part of the season where finally it's getting to be a real elite status list here, a real small club. For weeks now, we've been saying how like surprised we were that it's still a list of about 7-8 people each week, and some people in and out, some people in quickly and then out. Newbies join sometimes. Well, now we have a trio. And Shohei Ohtani, by the way, I know it's 0.74, does not qualify for this list. Does not have the innings that he needs to. Pitches a little more rarely with the 6-man thing in LA. So he's not yet on here, although he would be if it was just by ERA and we didn't talk about qualifications. But it is just officially 3 people and some good names here. Christopher Sanchez leads the way at 1.46. Jacob Mizorowski, 1.65. And then your boy, Cam Schlittler, 1.89. And that is it. So the days of Bryce Elder and the Jose Sorianos of the world and the Davis Martins of the world being in here, I don't want to say they're completely over because those guys could get back in. But for now, it is a trio. The next closest is Chase Burns at 2.05. Chris Sale, to be honest, had a very good chance at getting himself in this tonight as he started, but I believe went 5 2/3, gave up 3 runs, so did not get under the 2 mark. But those 3, and I would usually ask you who's staying in at the longest, but I think your answer would probably be all 3 have a chance.
Yeah, absolutely. I am a little bit concerned, maybe just because of the tension I'm feeling in Yankee land. Cam Schlittler's velocity was a little bit down, 2 miles per hour, and he got a little bit beat up. The last start, he looked human, where he looked absolutely superhuman in the other starts. That might just be growing pains. We've seen him have a start similar to that last year against Toronto, but he's a player that has to adjust going on. And what we saw from him is he didn't have that out pitch. So hopefully next time out, he can continue to compete with Garrett Cole being the ace of the staff.
Yeah, and with Schlittler, like you forget because when he goes out there, he seems like such a vet. But similar to what we said about Max Meyer, like we need to see full MLB season, right? The grind of a Major League Baseball season. And when he hits these rough patches, how does he adjust? When he gets these little bumps and bruises that he's expected to pitch through, how does he look? And that's what we're going to get to when we get to the dog days of August. Is he looking like he was in April, or is he starting to slow down a little bit?
Well, let's come around third here as we wrap up this episode. We thank you guys for spending your morning or evening, whenever you're listening to us with us. We're going to hop around third and give us what we're looking forward to during the weekend.
Coming around third.
All right, as we come around third, we're being waved in. And for me, again, bias here. NBA Finals are on the mind. Friday night, game 2, if you're listening to this, we have it getting ready in San Antonio. And then we all await whether they're heading into MSG tied 1-1 or they have a commanding 2-0 lead. That's going to be electric. And also happening and rarely taking a back seat in New York is the Yankees and the Red Sox. And I understand the Red Sox are having a down year, being below 500, 9 games to be exact. The Yankees have all the other stuff happening, the Judge piece, the drama there. That's going to be secondary. But again, eyes on them. Can they bury the Red Sox completely? Because the Red Sox seem like they're dead on their feet. If there is a sweep in Yankee land, we could be looking at just the Red Sox kind of zombie walking for the rest of the summer and kind of say goodbye to them and focus on the other teams in the AL East. But you have to put them to bed.
Yeah, no doubt. As far as what I'm looking forward to, Super Regionals we talked about starting on Friday night. That's a fun one. Best of 3 for each of those. Obviously the Knicks, that's front and center for us here in New York. And I will say, I think an interesting series, just looking quickly at the weekend series here, the Orioles, who have, played better lately, and the Blue Jays, to me, is pretty fascinating. Both are going to go into that series with a 30-33 record. And with the Aaron Judge news, it's got to make teams in the AL East feel like, catching those guys, the New York Yankees, might be more attainable and possible. So, and also the Blue Jays have, some pitchers on the way back as far as Dylan Cease, Shane Bieber, I think Max Scherzer as well. So they have the cavalry coming back and some position players eventually too. They'll get back. Obviously, maybe the most beat up team in Major League Baseball this year, the Toronto Blue Jays, but it'll be fascinating if one of those teams says, like, say, if the Orioles can sweep the Blue Jays, or the Blue Jays can sweep the Orioles, they'll be 500 at 33-33. So I think one of those teams could get big time momentum with a big weekend. So that's one I'll be watching.
So I got to give some love to our friends with the Seattle Mariners, Brady Farkas, of course, 33-30. They're sitting 2.5 games up in the AL West after struggling. They've had their struggles for sure, but they've righted the ship. So it's cool to see. And on the other end, I guess my concern, we didn't mention a lot of them, but we were very high on Tampa. What they've done, losing 8 of 10 now. They're still in first place in the AL East, but like I said, losers of 3 straight, losers of 8 of 10. What's your concern level of Tampa? Are they more of this team or the team that was super hot, or maybe somewhere in the middle?
You know what? I'm not too concerned yet. Still 13 games over 500, 21-9 at home, really good home team. I will say, when you look at the run differential, only +5, so that gives you a little bit of a, maybe they were playing over their skis a little bit. But I would say medium at the most level right now. Now, if you're a Cubs fan, your concern level should be high. Dude, I don't know what's going on with Chicago. I think they might have won one tonight, but every game is a roller coaster from, they actually did win 7-6 against the A's today. But if you've kept track of the Cubs over the last month or so, I don't know, man. Hopefully they can kind of get on even footing eventually, but it's just been, you just never know what you're going to see with them. They feel like every game, no matter what the score is, seems to be in question.
If you blink, some of these division races are just flipping on its head. And who would have thought the National League East would look the way it does this year? Even our preview episode, we thought it would be a tight race, at least with 2 of the teams. I was a little bit higher on Atlanta than you were, but to see them almost 10 games up on every single team in that division is wild. Philly kind of ride the ship a bit, but they're still 8.5 games back. It's just, I don't know. It's wild. And also to see what Milwaukee's done. Like, there was this huge tight race in the NL Central. It's going to be tight all year. And look at them pulling away 37-23. Like you said, Milwaukee might be on the precipice of something special. No World Series in franchise history. You can't forget that. Maybe they make the move and say, you know what? Throw caution to the wind, chips in the middle of the table. We want our World Series. We need to trade for Skubal and do it. Like, looking at a team like that, they feel special too. I know last year they had a really good season, and you name it, they did it, except winning in the postseason. But fuck, they look better this year. It's great. That's crazy to say.
Yeah. The Padres are another team we should point out on our way out here, man. They're getting into free fall territory. They're 1-9 in their last 10. They've lost 5 straight. The offense is anemic. They play the Mets. They play my Metsies this weekend here. I believe in San Diego too, at home. I will say, if the Mets take 2 of 3, the Padre fans are going to officially be in a panic if they're not already. Because you could say the Padres offense has been so bad. Well, the Mets offense is equally as bad. At least it has been. So if they go in there, and it's the Mets taking 2 out of 3 from the Padres is not something that should be a complete shock if it happens. I know they lost 2 of 3 in Seattle, but before that, played well in May. I believe their record in May was 16-12. So people are still dunking on the Mets because they still have a lot of ground to make up if they're going to make any noise. But they've played better. Carson Bench quietly putting together a very, very nice rookie season. AJ Ewing's looked really good. They're great in the outfield together. Juan Soto's been Juan Soto. So there's some positives, lots of negatives, and hopefully they get their cavalry as well in the shape of Francisco Lindor and Francisco Alvarez and some others back in the next couple weeks too.
What's your meter right now on David Stearns, Carlos Mendoza firing? Are you taking it off the burner, or you want both of them gone immediately?
Dude, I wanted David Stearns gone like a year ago, so that hasn't changed. I hate that guy. Honestly, I don't think anything's going to change my hatred of David Stearns. Mendoza, I don't have the hate towards. I know last week I said, yeah, it's time to fire him. Now doesn't seem like the appropriate time. Not saying he should or shouldn't be. I would say if they go on another losing streak, and to be honest, not even an extended losing streak, if they go on like a 3-4 game losing streak, I think it's time to pull the plug for him. But we'll see.
For sure. And we'll keep you guys updated on all things baseball. Like I said before, follow us on Twitter at TableSettersPod. Devin doing a really good job posting tweets and conversations, not just the notables, but polls and conversations. We will interact with you guys like we did the mailbag last week. So if you guys are looking for more mailbag information, let us know what you think about it. Send us a question. We will certainly have a conversation about it on air. You follow us on Instagram at TableSettersPod. A little less active on Instagram, but we're still posting over there, sharing some love of baseball. But check us out. Send us a message. Let us know what you think of the show. We're very interactive here. Looking to get more guests on in the future. If there's someone out there, if there's a team that you're a fan of that we haven't really talked about a lot, send us a reference of maybe someone you'd like to see us talk to. If you're a Colorado Rockies fan and there's something interesting going on in the Rockies, Len, let us know the best source of action to have a conversation with. Of course, Brady Farkas is going to be coming on the show soon. Might be the perfect time. The Seattle Mariners back in first place, talking some things. They're still fascinating. I know they're not firing on all cylinders. Cal Raleigh and him being injured, and Brian Wu, maybe he's finally back to who he was. And a lot of Seattle Mariners news that I'm very partial to because it affects my fantasy baseball team.
Yeah, we do have to get on the guest train. We've been slow on the guest train this season for whatever reason. I mean, I've been enjoying coming on weekly and just talking all baseball with you, but eventually we do like to get those guests on. So we'll put some work in on that side of things soon.
Did you see Lindor in that Aliens trailer yet or no?
Yeah, what is that? It's called Disclosure, right? The movie's
Disclosure Day, Steven Spielberg. So Francisco Lindor was in there with I believe a full Mets uniform.
It reminds me of the scene in one of the Batman movies. I think it's the Bane one when Hines Ward is running away as Heinz Field gets like completely blown up. Similar.
Yeah, so he's like getting ready to field. So it's very similar to that. That's a good comp right there with one of my favorite scenes in Pittsburgh where the whole field collapses and Bane's involved, obviously. Great movie. That's been on TV lately, for whatever reason. Dark Knight Rises has been on TV.
Those movies.
One of the classics.
Christopher Nolan Batman movies. Just so good. So good.
Absolutely. But again, we'll be back soon talking all things baseball. Hope you guys enjoy your weekend. Let's wish Devin to feel better. Stay away from the germs of all public school. Keep Devin healthy, taking his vitamins, saying his prayers, and talking all things. But any final words, Devin, to get out there?
No, I just hope my cough button worked tonight. I remember you had the a few months back, you had Coughgate on here where you didn't realize the cough button wasn't working. And
well, now we have because my headphones are not working, so we have technology.
There's always something, dude. Always something. Not just on your end. On
yeah, I
both
didn't
of
hear
our
you cough
ends.
once. I saw you coughing.
Oh,
didn't hear you coughing. That was great.
Oh, good. It means it worked then. But yeah, there was a time. I said this to Steve last week when we had some sound issues. There was a time, and when I say time, I mean like probably a 2 to 3 month period of time. And we were actually getting a lot of guests at the time as well, which made this even worse, where I would get kicked off every single recording at some point. Usually it was in between like the 10 to 20 minute mark. And I could not figure it out for the longest time. Thankfully, I eventually did. But it was it's such a helpless feeling of like knowing it was coming and not necessarily knowing when. Every time I'd get kicked off. And then thankfully, every time once I got back in, I'd be good for some reason. But that was our worst technical difficulty, in my opinion, that we've ever had.
Yeah, I mean, we should be grateful that technology works in the way it does, but sometimes like you said before, nothing more help, especially speaking from the education side of things, when you're teaching in class and you need technology to work and it just doesn't, and you're sitting there with your hands tied. It's helpless.
Right. Nothing you can do.
But again, we'll be back next week talking all things baseball. Until that time, we'll talk to you after a while. And as always, happy baseball. Go Knicks.
that has been so improbable, the impossible has happened.